If you thought Donald Trump had a bad track record of losing in court, then you haven't been paying close enough attention to a guy named Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow. Because as bad as Donald Trump's record is with the court system, Mike Lindell's is equally, if not as worse, as Donald Trump's. This week, Mike Lindell suffered yet another devastating blow when a federal judge ruled that, yes, Mike, you do have to pay the man who proved you wrong $5 million. And that payment is now officially enforceable. So here's what happened in case anybody had forgotten. During one of his cyber symposiums a couple years ago, Mike Lindell launched the Prove Mike Wrong Challenge. And what he did is they put together this packet of data that they allege showed that the Chinese somehow interfered with the 2020 election on behalf of the Democrats. So we had a whole packet. He said, if you accept the challenge, you agree to the terms, you sign your name, we'll give you the packet. And if you can prove that it doesn't say what Mike Lindell says it says, I'll give you $5 million. That was the challenge. You had a man by the name of Robert Zeidman, who's actually a Trump supporter. He is a conservative. So you have a Republican that wanted Trump to win that took on this challenge. It was like, oh, hell yeah. I mean, worst case scenario, I prove Trump won and I don't get $5 million. So, okay, it's a win-win for this guy, right? So he goes through the data. He is, of course, a computer forensics expert. And he goes through it and he reveals, oh, holy crap, Mike Lindell is wrong about all of this. It doesn't prove anything he's saying. So he submits it. He proves Mike wrong. And Mike was like, I'm not going to pay you. So they have to go to court. But Mike Lindell, trying to, cover his ass, put in an arbitration clause in the agreement to accept the challenge. So they're not allowed to go to court. They have to go in front of an arbitration panel. No judge, no jury. A panel of arbiters is going to determine who's right and who's wrong, and that's the end of the story. The arbiters came back and said, nope, Mr. Zeidman is right. You owe him $5 million. Well, Lindell appealed it, and this week it went in front of U.S. District Court Judge John Thunheim. And Mr. Thunheim, Judge Thunheim, said, a court's review of an arbitration award is very limited. Where parties agree to arbitrate, a court cannot substitute a judicial determination for the arbiter's decision. The court is not at liberty to review the outcome of an arbitration award simply because one party believes it to be incorrect. Retrial of the issues is not within the purview of the court. In other words, you put that arbitration clause in your agreement. You thought it would work to your benefit. And you are now the one being screwed by it. And thanks to years of conservative court packing, there ain't a damn thing we can do about an arbitration ruling. And yes, for the record, and this is something we've talked about over at Ring of Fire literally for decades now, the way arbitration works is that arbitration benefits the party that requested arbitration. They typically get to choose the arbiters, especially in corporate America, so it typically goes in their favor. And it costs the defendant a lot more money, and they cannot join a class. They cannot join, any kind of mass tort. They have to do it each individually, and that becomes very expensive for these individuals. So the Supreme Court actually has upheld a lot of this arbitration stuff, nearly all of it, by the way, over the last couple decades, giving all the power to the arbiters and taking it away from the courts themselves. Because of that conservative court packing that has allowed the arbitration to basically rule the day, Mike Lindell himself is screwed. So he's not only screwed because he's the one who put the arbitration clause in there, but you can thank several decades of court packing by Republicans for Mike Lindell now owing this man $5 million, a sum that Mike Lindell may have a little bit of trouble coming up with, considering he's admitted recently, of course, that he is basically financially ruined. So we'll see what happens, but there is an enforcement mechanism now in place, and Lindell has no choice but to pay or face potentially very severe consequences.